Essex boys murderer Mickey Steele is due to be released from prison. How he has been granted his parole. Now, even though he is still maintaining his innocence for the Essex boys murder, which happened 30 years ago. Now, as you probably will be all aware, Jack Holmes and Mickey Steele's was sentenced for the triple murders to life with a minimum of 23 years. Now, Mickey Steele has been in prison for 27 years, still maintaining his innocence, went up on the parole board, and the parole board has granted his release, but he is now 81-year-old. Now, if these murders had happened in this day and age, the minimum term would be much more than 23 years, but the sentencing guidelines back then in 1998 are a lot different to what they are today. In today's guidelines, if you kill someone with a gun, it's a minimum of 30 years. But for a triple murder, it would be life without parole. But because it was all the way back then, some 30 years ago when the murders happened, 27 years ago when they were convicted and sentenced. So, like I've mentioned, if it was now, it would not be a minimum of 23. It would be 20 for each murder. But Mickey Steele is now 81-year-old. Jack Holmes was released in 2021. Now, if you used to maintain your innocence whilst in prison on a life sentence for murder, you would not be released. The parole board would not grant your release unless you owned up to your crimes, done the courses that were needed, then you show that you were rehabilitated. But now they've changed it where the guidelines, where you don't have to prove that you were innocent. All you have to do is prove that you're rehabilitated. So you can do offending behaviour courses, and you can do these courses on past crimes. And when you come up for parole, you've still done your courses, which are a load of shit, by the way. And you can prove that you are rehabilitated and they can be released. But like I said, people used to spend decades in prison. Even people who were innocent, who had been wrongly convicted, would spend 20, 30, 40 years inside of prison because every time they came up for parole, when they were still denying the crimes, the parole board would automatically reject the application and they would not be released because they were used to look at it as if you don't own up to your crime, then you haven't changed and you are not rehabilitated. Now, we'll not go over the case because the majority of just about every person watching this video now will know exactly what the Essex boy murders were. Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Ralph were all murdered in that Range Rover on that fateful morning. And everyone has got their own conspiracies about what happened. Some of them are ludicrous, what people come up with, especially on some of the Facebook pages that have been set up, specifically talking about this case. And everyone who has read into it has come up with their own conspiracies, and a lot of them are fucking way out of what really happened. Now, Mickey Steele will be getting released within the next few weeks, and he probably will have to go into a hostel, because that's what happens when you're a lifer. Even though you've been into Category D, when you get released, you then got to go and sit in a hostel, normally for about 12 weeks, before you are then finally released into your own home with your loved ones or wherever you are residing when you are released, which is a bit of a piss state when you've spent that amount of time in prison. You've then got to go and sit in a hostel, which is normally worse than a prison, full of drug addicts and pissheads, where there's more trouble than what there is inside a prison, and they're putting you in danger. Well, Mickey Steele is now 81-year-old, like I've mentioned earlier on in the video, but he could still have a lot of years ahead of him because when they've been in prison for so long, I have heard firsthand from lads who were in Franklin with him, said he was one of the fittest blokes who ever came across, which is normally the case with lifers inside of prison because they've got nothing else to do apart from train and look after themselves, unless you do the other route where you get off your nut all the time, waste away, and you end up dying inside a prison. But the ones that have got their head screwed on, that want to live a long life, get to the gym, train as much as they can, come out fit as lops. Now, my pal who was inside of Franklin with Mickey Steele did say he was the fittest 70-odd-year-old bloke he'd ever came across. Down in the gym, he would do 3 sets on every machine in the gym. One of the fittest old blokes he's ever came across. He says you wouldn't have believed he was 70-odd-year-old. Obviously, this was when he was in there with him at the time. He said he was that fit, he used to bounce up and down the stairs, and he did look after himself inside a prison. Now, the pair did try and appeal against their conviction again through the CCRC in 2023, but the application was rejected, so I don't think anything will be going further with this case as appellants because of their now age and the fact that because it was 30 years ago, the CCRC will only refer it back to the Court of Appeal if there is fresh evidence, which I highly doubt that is going to come to light after 30 years. But whatever anybody thinks about the case, it was an absolute shady case. And obviously the witness, Darren Nichols, was a shady character who got offered a smaller sentence for his testimony, and he was in with a corrupt detective. So the case was shady as fuck. But everyone will have their own theories about what happened. But I just thought I would come on and let you all know exactly my thoughts on what's happening with Mickey Steele and with him being released in the coming weeks. I'll leave that one there for now, people. Hopefully you're still enjoying that content. And if you are, remember to comment, like and subscribe. Take care, everyone.